Hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Yvonne and I talk about books here. This is my very belated August reading wrap-up. I had the best yet reading month in August. I read in total of 13 books and with an average rating of 4.08 out of 5 stars. That almost never happens. I never have an average rating of over 4 stars. So that just goes to show how many wonderful books that I've read in August. That's also another reason why I've been putting off filming this video, because I am both very excited and scared to talk about these books. So many of these I love so much that I just don't know how I'm gonna do them justice with my bare words. So I'm going to try my best to convince you to read them. They are really wonderful, wonderful works. As I was putting together this list, I realized that I've only read 2 books by male authors this month. So let's just get these men out of the way first, shall we? First, I'm so happy to report that I found a new all-time favorite. It's one of my new favorite classic and my new favorite book. That's East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Thanks, John. I have a hard time formulating what this book is about. If we were to put it very simply, it is about 2 families in California and how they are intertwined for generations. That's the best I can summarize it. But really, this is about human nature, about good and evil and the coexistence of good and evil, and whether or not we have free will over that, whether or not we're just inherently evil and have to take the consequence of what we're born with. It is a multi-generational story that flows so naturally through generations, and you just get to know these characters really well. You get to really care for them, and you just can't stop thinking about them. I cannot put this down every time I pick it up. I genuinely want to know what happens next, what happens to these characters that I really care about. This is so brilliant. The creation of these characters, just how did you think of that, John? This is not one of those classics that you have to spend half an hour reading one page because it's so intensely, timidly about religion or agriculture or societal, cultural norms. No, this is literally a page turner that it's such an exciting, even thrilling tale that, like, after you read the whole thing, you just stare at the ceiling and go like, wow, that was about everything. If you're trying to get into classics but are really intimidated by them, I think East of Eden might be a great place to start. The language is so easy to read, the plot is just intriguing the entire way through, and the characters are so interesting and complex, and you just cannot help but wondering what the next page will give you. So, my new favorite book, East of Eden. Another man that I read from this month is Jeffrey Eugenides. This is The Virgin Suicides. This is my first time reading Jeffrey Eugenides, and I was blown away. So if you don't know, this is set in a suburban neighborhood with this Lisbon family. They have 5 sisters, and this family is quite private, and they just keep their distance from the community in the neighborhood. And the girls are 1 year apart from each other, so they're from 13 to 17 years old. And our narrators are this group of anonymous teenage boys who we've never learned their names. We've never really known anything about them. They're just referred to as we, and they keep watching these sisters because they are so mysterious and so fascinating to the boys. And I think the boys kind of represent the whole community or society as well, because everybody wants to know what's going on in that house, but nobody does. And this is not a spoiler. It literally says in the title and the first sentence of the book that all these 5 sisters ended up killing themselves. Why? Nobody knows. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about this novel. All these boys tell this story years after the incidents, and they are old adults who are still haunted by these girls. They never ever understood them, and as readers we also don't understand them. It's just a mystery that you cannot solve. You can have a lot of theories, just like everybody in the community did, and some people are more certain than the others about their own theories, but nobody actually knows for sure. No matter how obsessed you are, no matter how dedicated you are to figure it out, you just never know. I think that's why this book feels so foggy. Like the whole way through reading it, it just feels like I'm watching this house through really thick fog. And I think it's fascinating that Eugenides created these girls that exist beyond others' perception. Like they existed, they went through things, they had feelings and thoughts and ideas that nobody understands. Yet they were real, and that's why they keep haunting us. The boys go back to these memories so many years later, trying to think if they missed something, if they can piece everything together, and so as us readers. But we're just gonna end up with more theories and doubts in our heads. Such an interesting book. And speaking of watching women through the lens of men, the next book I read, I don't have the physical copy with me because I returned it to the library yesterday, is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This is a very strange, weird, disturbing book. It is about a woman in South Korea who had nightmares about bloody animal meats, and she just woke up one day and decided she's not going to eat meat anymore. And we follow the narration of her husband, her sister, and her brother-in-law, and see how everyone around her reacts to this decision. This is called The Vegetarian, but it really has nothing to do with the vegetarianism, animal meat industry, anything like that. It's just about women in that society are expected to act or behave a certain way, and how a woman's decision that's not normal or ordinary to people around her will alienize her, and eventually this woman becomes a rebel who just refuses to eat at all. But we can tell that her rebel is not just because she doesn't want to eat meat. It's more like a mental illness explosion after so many traumatizing experiences and holding back for so long. It's definitely not a book for everyone, but it's such an interesting piece. I didn't fully love it, but it got me really intrigued in Han Kang's works and just her brain. I'm interested in her brain. Another one that I wouldn't recommend to everybody, but I know it definitely has its audience, is Paradais by Fernanda Melchor. Fernanda Melchor has a very distinctive writing style, and she has her audience. She has her fan groups. And I'm not sure I'm one of those. Paradais is this violent, again, disturbing tale about this really fancy luxury neighborhood in Mexico. And it's about these 2 teenage boys who are so unhappy with their lives, who think that they deserve so much better than what they have and who get desperate for things that they really want but can't have. It covers poverty, privileges, classes, and just what a family or society does to kids or teenagers. I read this in my 24-hour readathon where I read only women in translation books. So if you want more detailed thoughts on this, I will link that video down below. But this ended up being so unpleasant that I don't really want to think about it again. And in that same 24-hour readathon, I also read these 3 books that I wholeheartedly loved. So first we have Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro. Guys, this is so good. And if you watched my readathon, you know that I teared up at the ending of this one. This is about mother and daughter relationship. A mother with Parkinson's went to find answers after her daughter supposedly killed herself. But Elena, our main character, the mom, knows that her daughter would not do such a thing. But because she has Parkinson's and her body doesn't really listen to her anymore, she has to ask someone for help. So she went on her journey to find this third character that she can ask for help from. Oh gosh, the helplessness of not being able to control your body is described so well in this book. And as the story carries on, a lot of these characters' paths unfold, and you just see Elena reflect on all these things and unlearn everything she thought she knew. It's so heart-wrenching. It explores religious dogma, what life means, what being alive means, what being a mother means. It's so many things packed in less than 200 pages. I ate this up. I love this so much. The next book, The Housekeeper and the Professor, is about memory loss. It's about this math professor who had a car accident and now only has 8 minutes. I don't remember the exact number, but like very short-term memory. So this book is about the blooming relationship and friendship between him and this housekeeper and the housekeeper's son, a little kid whose name is Ruth. This is a very wholesome, heartwarming book about human connections, friendship, and how that connection and friendship can overcome the short-term memory. And because this professor is so passionate about math, this book also has a lot of very beautiful passages about mathematics being a form of art. So that part is actually my favorite of this book. And then the last book I read in the 24-hour readathon was All the Lovers in the Night by Miko Kawakami. Oh gosh, these 2 books really just reminded me of how much I love Japanese literature. I feel like there are 2 typical types of Japanese literature. On the one side of the spectrum, we have books like The Housekeeper and the Professor and all those other little books about cats. I don't know what it is with Japanese literature and cats, but they have so many books about cats. They are just wholesome, heartwarming. You just get sucked into this la la land that you just come out with a heart full of warmth and comfort. But on the other side of the spectrum are books like All the Lovers in the Night. I think Japanese literature gives me the most relatable description of an ordinary person's mundane life. A big theme in these books is solitude. They are usually about a very ordinary person living in a busy city while so many things are going on in the outside world. In the city, there are so many noises. The main character is usually very alone. They live a very bland life. They eat at the convenience store. They don't have very exciting things happening in their life. Nothing to really look forward to. They don't really have people who they really care or who care for them. But it doesn't mean that a story from this kind of people's perspective would not be interesting. This book just proved that. Man, this is so beautiful. All the proses in here are so gorgeous. It's so subtle and so quiet and seemingly so indifferent, but it just hits. It really hits my soul. It's called All the Lovers in the Night, and at night you have so many lights, and every light could be a different story. There are stories happening in every apartment, every store, every restaurant, every car that's on the way to somewhere. All that color and all the things that are happening makes the things in the shadow even more solitary. I don't know if I did this justice at all, but it's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And another book I read about women's alienation in regards to their decisions to do something that people around them don't accept is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. This one is so ahead of its time when it came out, and apparently it kind of ended Kate Chopin's career because this was... Hi! Hi, buddy! Just like in The Vegetarian, when the woman woke up and decided that she doesn't want to eat meat anymore, this one is that this woman one day just realizes that she's not been living. She's been just doing all these things that others think she should do, but she doesn't really want to do any of these. She doesn't really care for her kids. She doesn't even, I don't think she ever wanted to have kids, but just never thought about that. So she doesn't want to take care of her kids. She doesn't want to listen to her husband anymore. And she just suddenly awakened and has all these ideas in her head that she wants to do, things that she actually wants to do. But all these things that she wanted to do, that she awakened to desire, made her this solitary soul that nobody understands, nobody supports, and of course leads to a not happy ending. I don't really know what my take is on the ending. It could be said that she has awakened and wants out of this domestic place that everyone tries to put her in, but she struggles with everyone else and the society's perception on her that leads to this tragic ending. Or has she ever really awakened? Does she really know what independence is, what liberation is? Because she was raised and she existed in a society that this is not a thing. So was it a struggle with other people's perception, or was it a struggle with her inner self regarding the confusion of what she actually wants, what she is trying so hard to find but cannot find? It is very interesting to see how this theme that's very common now was written in 1899. So that's The Awakening. The next book I read is Banyan Moon by Tao Tai. I talked about this in my mid-year freakout tag video, that this is my most anticipated new release from this year. It met and exceeded all my anticipation and expectation. This is another one that made my eyes watery. This is about 3 generations of women, a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter, and their life story all the way from Vietnam to Florida. And the story begins with the grandma's passing. The daughter goes back to their old house in Florida to reunite with her mom and to take care of things now that her grandma passed. But this daughter and her mother kind of have this complicated relationships. They were not really close. The grandma was the one who tied them together. And now they just have to deal with each other without that string that used to make it easy for them. Alternating from the narration of these 3 women, we learned so much about the family history and what each of them went through, how how their lives once fell apart, but they had to be strong for their daughter. And to me, the most moving part is how all the unsaid things by the mother will never be known by the kid. Mothers decide to leave the past behind because they want to leave all the darkness in the past and just have happiness and light for their daughters. But every unsaid things by the daughter is always understood by the mother because they're mothers, and that's what they do. They see through you and they're there for you one way or another. I really grew to love all these three women, and I think you will too. This is such a beautiful story and such an impressive debut. And then we have The Death of Vivek Oji by Akweki Imezi. I have read You Make a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I think that's what it's called, by the same author. And even though I didn't really love the story of that one, I was really impressed by the beautiful writing. So I picked up this one, and yes, it still has that signature gorgeous writing, and the story is, it hurts. The story is heartbreaking. This is about Vivek, whose body was put at their parents' doorstep. And Vivek's mother was trying everything she could to find out what happened to her kid. It sounds like a murder mystery, and it is one. We follow Vivek's mother, friend, cousins to kind of try to figure out what happened that caused Vivek's death. It mainly discovers one's sexuality and one's identity, and one coming to term with who they actually are, who they want to be, and accepting that. But the society does not. People around them don't just accept it. So a series of tragic things happen. There are similar themes in this as in Elena Knows. Basically, what does a mother really know about their kid? And can you be a good mother if you didn't actually understand your kid? It's a lot of grief, but on top of that, knowing that your kid was a different person than you thought they were, who they were, probably hurt just as much too. And then this next book, oh my god, I didn't give it a rating because I don't think I'm comfortable, nor do I have a right to give this book a rating. That is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I feel like most people probably already know what this is about, but if you don't, this is like a modern tale of Lolita. It is about a 42, I think, year-old teacher and a 14 or 15-year-old schoolgirl, and how the teacher manipulated the girl into having a relationship with him physically and mentally. And years later, when this girl is an adult, she saw these news blowing up about other girls accusing this teacher of sexual assault. And the girls and the press reached out to her, wanting her to come out and tell her story. But she refused all that because she never thought she was a victim. She's very certain that what she had or still has with this teacher is a love story. She was not manipulated, she was not assaulted, she was willingly, voluntarily, with full understanding and consent, in love with the teacher. As the book goes on, we kind of see how that story in her mind starts to crumble. The more she talks about it with her therapist, the more she reflects on a lot of details about what was actually happening and what the teacher was telling her what was happening. And as she started to listen to these other girls' stories, that she started having doubts of whether or not what she believed is true. But there is a quote in here that explains the main reasoning behind her denial of all these rumors. Basically, she says, I need this to be a love story. It has to be a love story, because if it's not a love story, then what is it? This is my life. Like, her entire life is built around this love story of hers, and she cannot accept that it's anything else but what she believes it is. This is such a difficult read. This is so dark. It put me in a black hole of all the impossible emotions. And to think that these things actually happened to people and probably are still happening to people somewhere, it just gives me chills. This is very, very well written, but I don't know if I would recommend it to anybody because it's full of trigger warnings. The entire thing, every sentence could be very triggering. So do whatever you want. Make sure you are in a good mental space if you ever decided to pick this up. And then very quickly, last 2 books that I read in August are 2 mysteries. So for the Read Christie challenge, I read Elephants Can Remember. I've never heard of this book until I found it at a library sale. This is an interesting one because the mystery case in this one didn't just happen. Like, they are investigating a case that happened way before the book started in the past. It is pretty typical Agatha Christie writing and story crafting, so I liked it. I don't really have much else to say about it. And then the last one is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and I think I enjoyed this pretty much as I enjoyed the first one. This is YA mystery, so of course it reads a little bit juvenile, and you kind of have to withhold some disbelief when it comes to very convenient ways to find out things or to get away with trouble. I see a lot of critiques on this series of it being juvenile, oversimplified, and just unbelievable, but I think you just have to know what to expect, and this is a young adult, fun, fast-paced, entertaining mystery series, and I liked it. Okay, oh my god, my throat hurts. That was everything I read in August. I am so happy with these books. I'm so happy I have read them. I'm so happy I have found some of my new favorites in August. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. I hope you had a great reading month as well, and if not, I hope I have provided you some good recommendations to read next. I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.